Hey, I'm Kristi Mitchell, and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing, the podcast where we talk about what really happens when marketing doesn't go according to plan. Every week, I sit down with business owners and leaders to unpack the missteps, the experiments that didn't land, and the decisions they'd probably rethink if given a do-over. But more importantly, we talk about what they learned on the other side and what you can take with you as you build your own business. Success rarely comes from getting it right the first time. It comes from taking action, making mistakes, adjusting, and showing up again and again. If you've ever wondered whether you're the only one figuring this out as you go, you're in the right place. Hello. I'm so excited for today's episode. From hypnosis to wind turbines to luxury interior design, Emily Aborn has written it all. She's a small business copywriter and host of the podcast, Small Business Casual. Emily brings over 12 years of copywriting experience and has written for 122 and counting different industries. She helps you step into becoming and sharing the real you. For fun and downtime, Emily loves reading, writing, hiking with friends, and moments of uninterrupted silence. I don't know what that is with a child and 2 dogs in my house, but hello, Emily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? It kind of is case in point to our conversation today about distractions. Yes. So there you go.
Yeah. It really is. I'm so excited for this conversation. I always like to share how I met my guests. So you and I actually got into each other's worlds on LinkedIn somehow, I think through mutual connections, commenting on things. I checked out your podcast. I loved this one episode, shared it in my newsletter. And then we both happened to be on Podmatch and you showed up as a match to come on my show. So I was like, oh my gosh, how funny.
And big shout out to Podmatch because I have met so many great friends or connected with people that I was already connected to and been like, oh my gosh, we need to record together. So yes. I love Podmatch.
Yes, I do too. I've been having more and more guests from Podmatch since I finally upgraded my profile I originally joined the platform before I started my own show just to be on other people's podcasts. And then I finally went and added my show. And so it's been a great opportunity to just get in front of like totally brand new people.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Well, Emily, today, when we talked about having you come on the show, you had said a whole bunch of things that resonated so much with me in terms of what you see with clients and other business owners out there in terms of their like ability to like really keep their audience focused with the messaging that they're putting out there. And in this world of like so much distraction, so much noise everywhere we turn, I could see how this is a really tough challenge for you and probably the work that you do with your clients. So I'll leave it to you. Where do you want to kick off this conversation today? Because I'm really excited to dive in.
I know you like to talk about mistakes. So I think I want to share the mistake I saw happen in live time that brought me to even like start researching this topic. So I was sitting in a conference and it was a great conference. It was for women locally. And I'm sitting there and the presenter towards the end, like I will say the presentation I found myself in was not like the most riveting. So towards the end, I think we were all kind of our attention span is waning, right? And she goes, okay, I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen. I want you all to take out your phones and just take this survey that it's like 5 questions. This is like not quite the end of the presentation, almost the end of the presentation. So everybody gets out their cell phones. We put our phones up to the QR code. And I tell you what, I look up like probably 8 minutes later. I mean, it was 5 questions. It took 2 seconds to fill out that survey. I look up 5 minutes later. I was in my phone. I was just like scrolling something, checking my email. Like, I don't know what I was doing. I look around the room and everybody is still in their phones. And it was like one of those things where she's like, look up when you're done, and like nobody was looking up. So I'm like, I know it did not take us all this long to fill out that survey because it was literally just like punching buttons. But it goes to show a point of how easy we are to be, even when we don't want to be. Even when I'm like, I've paid for this conference, I've paid to be in this workshop, I'm listening to the information, how easily our brains are distracted. And I will say a lot of it, like in researching, a lot of it's not our fault. Our brain is in it's in kind of like a bouncing off the wall state 50% of the time that we're awake. So 50% of the time you're awake, you're not paying attention to the thing that you're doing. And it's just your brain being like, I'm going to go someplace else. So it's really an active job for your reader or your listener to stay focused on what you're saying. And I find that really helpful for us as content creators, but also kind of like a challenge. So like, how do I keep them engaged? And that's kind of how I came to this. I was like, this is a bigger, I started seeing it everywhere, of course, after that. But
I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so many things we could talk about in this. So really interesting about your experience at that conference and how that really kind of opened up this whole new kind of lens to look at the work that you do as a content creator for yourself, probably, I assume, and also for your clients. And now you start seeing it everywhere. So what are the other examples that you think are really prevalent in terms of like these mistakes that business owners are making where they might be inadvertently like diverting people's attention instead of getting them to focus?
I have 5 like pretty specific do's and don'ts. So that will be a nice, easy way to kind of keep everybody in on the same path that we're going. But I want to start with 2 things I think that are super helpful before you even start considering do's and don'ts. Before you even get to that point, no matter what you're creating, whether it's a podcast episode or you're writing social media posts or a blog or to your email list, I think you have to do 2 things. 1, ask yourself who you're talking to and why it matters to them. Like, how many times have you read something that you're like, okay, literally don't care? Like, it's like didn't even try to get your attention because they forgot they were talking to you in the first place. So, and as podcast hosts, I like to do this in like little tiny ways. Sometimes I'll bring in an actual listener. I'm like, hey, Amy, I know you're listening to the show while you're walking your dog in the morning, right? So I might bring in somebody specific. And the more we can do that, like obviously you can't do that to every single person in your listenership or your readership, but the more you can specify things, it brings people right in. So you don't have to get that granular, but you do need to know who you're talking to and why it matters to them. That's like step 1. I also find for myself, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but when my desk is cluttered, my brain gets, or like if I have too many tabs open on my computer or I have all these notifications on and they're just like pinging at me, as a creator, I get very distracted. And so then I kind of lose my focus, my train of thought. And as a result, that's going to come across in my content and it's going to cause my audience to be like, okay, not engaging. Right. So I like to think of engagement as like a reciprocity. Like I'm engaged. That makes also you be more engaged. So I think that's a good place to start. Like clean your desk off, light a little candle if you have to. I call it like my Zen zone. Set up like my Zen zone. Put on the right music,
Well, the interesting part that you just said, Amy, really resonated because I've said so many times, if you're not excited to create content, then your audience isn't going to be excited to read it. If you're just going through the motions to put stuff out there, and of course, now AI makes that super easy to do. Like if you don't have energy in the creation of it, how much energy are you really going to get back from your audience? I love this kind of nuance or next level to that, which is, if you're not focused in what you're saying and who you're saying it to, how are they going to stay focused on the message that you're trying to give them? I think that's such a great point.
Yeah. It's like step 1 of marketing. And I think we all forget it. Like I've been doing this for 12 years and I'm still guilty sometimes of being like, whoops, lost the thread there, Emily.
Yes.
Stay focused on the person you're talking to.
Yes.
All right. So let's do the 5 don'ts because that's like we all want to know what not to do, right? So first one is don't, and you have to catch yourself, but don't info dump or overload people with information. Like a lot of the ideas we share in our episodes, we could actually break up into a couple of different episodes, or we could spare them from going into like the deep, dark, scientific, every single detail, right? And just not dump all the information at them. So you kind of have to think of it as like people can only take in so much when they're learning something new. And so we kind of want to like spoon feed it to them in a not in a condescending way, but just not in like here's all the info. And the same goes, I'm sure you see this all the time, like when we use too much industry jargon. You're like, I don't know what that word means because I'm not a neuroscientist, but if I were, that'd be super helpful, right?
Yes.
So that's another way you can kind of info dump on people. Because when we do that, like the human brain is naturally like, well, I don't understand. It's not easy. So I'm just going to tune it out. And on the flip side of that, my second one is not being vague or empty. So I've heard other shows where they're just like talking around something or talking hypothetical. They're like,
that drives me nuts.
Yeah, me. I heard one today. I was like, dear God, like, I don't understand. You don't have a point here, I don't think.
Yes.
So don't be vague or empty. And if you aren't sure if you're doing that, like, bring somebody like Kristi in, to ask, like, am I giving a concise, clear message in what I'm sharing? Because we want to be tangible. It's nice to be like hypothetical and conceptual, but we also want to be really, really tangible. This one I have to catch myself in all the time, and it's very common. I hear it on podcasts, but I also see it in reading and posts where people just wander off track. They go on like a little side quest, but it takes them so long to come back. Like, it's just too long. Off tangent, or tangents are fine when they're like quick, right? But you have to catch yourself and come back, because if this is a podcast about distractions and all of a sudden we're 10 minutes into baking cakes, people are like, well, that's not what I came here for. So we really want to stay on track. And I don't want you to like take the humanness out and the stories out, but it's just important to remember, like, how can I tell this in a concise, to the point way, right?
Yeah.
Because people's time and energy and bandwidth is limited. And then you are so good at this, and it's not being like monotone or flat. I think that is, personally, that's the fastest way to get my brain to tune out. I was listening. I really wanted to read this article yesterday. So I had the reader read it to me, but it was an AI reader, and it was like so monotone and flat. And I was like, oh my God, I have to now read the article because I didn't get a word that he said, because my brain was like, boring. So, and as a podcast host, I think the easiest, or, a writer, the easiest way to remember to do that is just keep it in your voice. Like, even if you script, you can still make it very energized and in your voice. You don't have to like just like, I'm not an AI robot. And very last one is just keeping in mind our delivery format. So like, you and I right now are doing a podcast. We have video, which is exciting. So if we're pointing to something or showing people something, we will kind of reference, okay, if you're watching the video, you can see that we're pointing to this. But people who are just listening won't be able to see things. So if we're describing something, you just have to keep in mind how people are taking in the content, because it's the same with reading. Like, if you're just describing something and I'm like, yeah, I can't see it, I cannot see it. So you need to just keep
now I have FOMO.
Exactly. And sometimes you can get over those things with like doing video along with audio, or you can have show notes, or you can have pictures, right? Like, there's all kinds of different ways around that. But it is important when you're describing things to make sure you recognize that some people can't see that what you're talking about. Some people can't hear what you're talking about. So you have to think of all the way that they're actually consuming the information. So those are the 5 don'ts. And I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, I think that those are super helpful. And I love how they like in my mind, it's like a lot of them feed together, right? The whole like, don't give too much information, but then don't like not make a point either, right? It's like finding the happy medium in there. And I really love your point about like the energy that you bring to it and like keeping people engaged. And it doesn't have to just be, and you were kind of touching on this, it doesn't just have to be, for podcasters, right? Like, no one wants to listen to someone who's monotone and doesn't have any, affect or excitement in what they're talking about. But that translates into written content too, and making sure, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, right? But a lot of the AI content being generated, right, is being criticized for this lack of personality, lack of authenticity. And so I think it is really important to tie in your last point there, what medium are you going to be on? How do you show up as authentically as possible for yourself, for your business, whatever you're representing, in an engaging way, making sure you're very intentional about who it is that you're talking to, what is the point of what you're saying, and how do you make sure that you bring that energy and enthusiasm for the topic so that your audience can feel that same thing.
Yeah.
I was just kind of trying to weave in all of your points in one.
Which is like, you set me so up for this, for the first do, which is to include summaries of what we just talked about. And I also love previews, which is like, a preview would be like, if you're writing, it'd be like the too long didn't read, or like, you know, here's what you can expect in this email. But another way to do a preview would be on my podcast. I'll be like, okay, next week I'm going to be talking about XYZ, or here's what you can expect in this episode. It really helps me as a listener because I know what I'm in for, whether or not I want to even keep listening in the first place. And also I'm like, ooh, I can't wait until they get to that part of the conversation, or I can't wait till next week. Like, I'm kind of already pre-engaged before they even get to the parts that they were talking about. So both of those can be fabulous. And summaries are awesome because if somebody did miss something that you talked about, they can be like, wait, I didn't hear you say that point. So I'm going to rewind 40 seconds or whatever and go back and listen to that. So I love both of those. I love anything that helps give structure. And I know that sounds like super boring, but it's wicked helpful for whoever's reading and listening to your stuff.
I'm with you, Emily. I need structure.
Yes. It doesn't sound glamorous, but it is really, really helpful. The other one, and we've been talking around this, but bringing in like your personality and your stories, that is the number one way I can think to be engaging. Like, the more you are, the more other people feel like they can be, and that is so human. And I swear that is what we are all looking for right now, is just more human to human connection. So don't shy away from your stories. Make sure they stay on topic, right? And your personality.
You know what? I'm going to stop you just for a second, and we're going to go on a small tangent because I wanted to bring up this point earlier, but now we're coming back to it again. You gave this specific example of like calling out a listener, someone you know who listens to your podcast, and that kind of like personal. And it honestly triggered something in my mind in my monthly newsletter that I send out, which is like chock full of resources and kind of what I have going on. I always do this little intro letter at the beginning. And I always ground it in like something that's happening in my life or my business or this time of year. And I find it to be such an effective way to get people to respond and say like the one I just sent out was about like summer boundaries. And I had a handful of people respond and be like, oh yeah, these are the boundaries I set for myself this summer. But it's that kind of like, it's speaking directly to people and bringing in these personal stories that you're talking about. It's so simple and so incredibly effective.
I think like one of my best emails was one where I talked about my favorite spice being cinnamon. I got like so many responses, either one way or the other. I was like, so weird. But you also, I swear you're reading my list right now because you just set up the next one, which is like to ask questions. So I love doing what you did and also asking other people. Like, LinkedIn is such a great spot to play around with this. Don't just post out there and be like, this is my message, right? But you can also ask people what they think. And that to me is the best way to keep people engaged, asking questions. Obviously you don't want to like bombard them with like 20 reflection questions, but one really nice question at the beginning or end kind of helps them say, oh, I have thoughts on that too. And I would love to tell you what they are. So it does keep them engaged and getting writing back to you, which is awesome.
Yes. And I think sometimes those questions, I see people, so I run an ongoing group of like business owners who are executing their own marketing. It's like a support group for them to like help cheer them on and guide them and give them feedback. So I review a lot of content for them. But one thing I see is like people trying to ask a question, but it's like too vague or too big. And it's like, okay, someone's really not going to answer that on LinkedIn. Yeah. So like, let's be realistic about the question that we're asking.
Yes, agreed. Not like, where are you going in life right now? You know, that's a little big.
Yeah. Too much.
The other one I love is whenever possible to just kind of use like that woman had slides going along with her presentation, but using simple visuals to help people along. Or if you get show notes, I think that's a really great place to keep people engaged. If you are giving a lot of information or stats, you want to think about like infographics that go along with that. So other pieces that can help kind of support the attention span, right? That like how we all love memes on Instagram. So, take advantage of that kind of part of the brain. And lastly on the do's is just when we have a call to action, not giving like 30 different calls to action, but just one really simple call to action. It's so much like when I hear somebody that's like, and here's all the events I have coming up this week, and it's like 10 different things, 4 different Facebook groups I could be part of. I'm like, I don't know which one to do. So just one call to action is
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Another quick story on that one. I have a dear friend. I absolutely adore her. She's a fabulous writer. She's in the PR space. And I was helping her with her email marketing a while ago. And every single email, she had like 10 different links and things. And I was like, you got to stop. You can't, I'm not going to let you send that email with that many different places to send people. Like, they're not going to know where to go. You have to hone it in and be specific.
Yeah. And if you want to do that, like put a little resources section at the bottom, right? Or like, little, what do they call them? Footnotes. Yeah. I love footnotes. If I'm super savvy and I want to keep on going, I'll go to the footnotes. But otherwise, I just want you to tell me one thing to do at a time.
Yeah. Because again, the whole point of this conversation is people's time and attention is so incredibly limited. So I think it's really, you've provided so many great tips and tricks and do's and don'ts in this conversation in terms of like, what should we be keeping in mind so that we really keep our audience engaged and not accidentally lose them to the next distracting thing on their computer or their device or wherever they are.
Yeah. Or their own brains. I always, do your best and blame the rest on their brain. It really is not always their fault. And I think that's important. Like our system is super set up to distract us. And so is our own electrical wiring up here. So,
oh my God, that stat you shared, 50% of the time. Like, and then I think of, as a person who has experience being around people who are neurodivergent, like I think about like, oh gosh, what is that percentage?
Last night,
like 10?
Last night my husband was eating dinner and he's like, he just got distracted watching something crawl across the table like a little fly or something. And I was like, are we eating or are we watching the fly? So yes. Think of that. Think of your listener and your reader kind of like that.
Yes. Yeah. And I think when, back to your point earlier about who are we talking to? What do we want them to know? What is the action we want them to take? If we're keeping that in mind and we're just assuming now that you've given us this great statistic about 50% of the time we're not focused anyway, if we go into creating our marketing content through that lens, knowing like, okay, people get really distracted. So what do I need to do to rise above that and really try and keep them engaged? I think that can just put us light years ahead in terms of the content that we're putting out there.
Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. Well, Emily, we've covered so much great information in this conversation. I hope people took notes or go back to the show notes or re-listen to this episode because I think there's a lot of great nuggets in there. As we get ready to kind of wrap up this conversation today, is there any last piece of advice you want to leave?
I think my piece of advice for anything you're trying to work on in your marketing is to experiment. So you take any of these one things and experiment and work on one of them at a time, right? And see how that helps your audience's attention span increase and just work on one at a time. I am a big fan of giving yourself little experiments and steps and then taking it from there. So I would say that for like anything marketing related, try it, see if it's for you and give it like, I like 90 days, 3 weeks. Like I like groups of 3 for things. So that's my takeaway.
Yes. I love it. And honestly, it's been so interesting. I'm like, cause you and I have never chatted or anything before, but I feel like we just share so much alignment in terms of the way we talk about marketing and different things. And I'm always like, don't overcommit. Like, I don't want anyone listening to this episode to be like, there were too many ideas. I don't know where to start. Like you said, like pick one, just pick one of them. And your other point about experimentation, like I just talked about that on my 100th episode not too long ago. And that is a recurring theme in this show, is just marketing especially is all about experiments. So we try things out, we measure it, we see how it goes, and then we figure out what's our path forward from there.
100%. Because what works for somebody else is not always going to work for you. So
yes, absolutely. Well, very lastly, Emily, I would love to give you the chance. How can people connect with you, learn more about you? Certainly they need to go check out your podcast for sure.
Well, that's my one CTA. That's it. If you're already listening to Kristi's podcast, so it's an easy jump over to mine, Small Business Casual, whatever podcast app you're using right now. And you don't have to stop listening to Kristi's to listen to mine. They like she said, they go hand in hand. So that's all I ask. And then from there we can connect in all of the places. So
yes. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for your willingness to come on the show and share your insights and expertise.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
It was. I really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like it's the first of many more to come.
Yes.
All right.